And the reason some people think, well, I don't know, I remember that economy when he first came in being pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good, because it was my economy. We had 75 straight months of job growth that I handed over to him. It wasn't something he did. I had spent 8 years cleaning up the mess that the Republicans had left me the last time. So just in case everybody has a hazy memory, he didn't do nothing except those big tax cuts.
You know, it's funny how much we talk about presidents and the economy, right? Like, it's all on them. You know, things are good or bad.
Yeah.
But, like, is that really fair? I mean, how much can one person really change things, especially in just a few years?
Right. It's way more complicated than just like president good, economy good.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. So today we're going to do a deep dive into the numbers, the actual data behind the economy during Obama's second term and then that transition to Trump.
Yep. We're going to look at the trends across both presidencies and see what the data actually tells us.
So I think we might be surprised by what we find.
Yeah. You never know with these things. Sometimes the numbers tell a very different story than the headlines.
Okay. So let's start with what everybody loves to argue about economic growth.
Yeah, that's the big one, right?
So during Obama's second term, the average quarterly growth was 2.4%.
Right.
And then under Trump, before the pandemic hit, it was 2.5%. So, like, on the surface, it seems like maybe Trump's economy was a tiny bit stronger, but
It's a tiny difference, right?
yeah, exactly.
And this is where things get tricky, because just because there's a trend continuing, it doesn't mean the new president caused it.
So maybe it wasn't really Trump's policies that made the difference.
We need to look deeper, right?
Right.
Like, was this just momentum from what was already happening under Obama?
Okay, so how do we figure that out? What else should we look at?
Well, remember back in 2009, Obama signed that big stimulus package, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act.
Yeah, to deal with the whole recession mess.
Right, and a lot of economists say that's a big reason why the U.S. economy started to recover. So it's possible those effects were still playing out during Trump's time, too.
So that makes sense, but wouldn't we see that in other areas of the economy, too?
Yeah, for sure. Let's look at something else.
Okay, let's talk about unemployment.
Right?
Unemployment dropped dramatically under Obama, from 10% all the way down to 4.7%.
Big change.
Huge.
Yeah.
But then it kept going down under Trump, eventually hitting 3.5%.
So again, the question is that Obama's work still having an impact, or was it something Trump did?
Right? Because it's easy to just draw a straight line and say, look, Trump's policies kept unemployment falling.
Yeah, but it's never that simple.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into those unemployment numbers.
Exactly. Like how many people are actually looking for work, you know, the labor force participation rate.
Right. And how productive people are.
Exactly. Productivity growth, all that stuff matters. But here's the thing. That rate of decline stayed pretty similar, which makes you think maybe there were some underlying trends already happening. You know, this kind of trend analysis is actually used in all sorts of fields, not just economics.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like you see it in understanding how society changes, like social trends, even predicting what's going to happen in the market, like market trends.
Interesting. So maybe it's not always about the big flashy changes, but about those subtle long-term patterns.
Exactly. Sometimes those patterns tell you more than just looking at one or two data points.
Okay, but let's talk about stuff that people always bring up, like the stock market.
Oh, yeah. Everyone loves to talk about the stock market.
Oh, yeah. And wages. Did those change much when Trump took over?
Okay, so the stock market kept going up under both Obama and Trump.
Makes sense the economy was growing, right?
Right, but remember a lot of that initial growth, the big jump after the 2008 crash that happened under Obama.
Okay, yeah.
And then wages, well, we saw some increases under both presidents, but nothing dramatic when Trump came in.
So at like slow and steady, but no big shakeups.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. But what about something that Trump was really known for, the 2017 tax cuts?
Oh, yeah. Those were huge.
Did those actually help the economy grow, or was it just like some people say that it mostly helped the wealthy?
Okay, so the 2017 tax cuts definitely had a big impact.
In what way?
Well, corporate tax rates went down, and there were some changes to income tax brackets, mostly benefiting corporations and higher earners.
Yeah, that's what some people were worried about.
Right, and some people argued those cuts helped businesses invest more and create jobs, But the data also shows a big increase in the national deficit even before the pandemic.
So it's like spending a ton of money on a fancy car and then wondering why your bank account is empty.
Yeah, kind of. It suggests maybe the tax cuts helped boost the economy in the short term, but maybe not so much in the long term.
So maybe there's a trade-off there, right?
Yeah.
Like short-term gain but long-term pain.
Yeah, exactly. It's complicated.
Yeah.
Economic policies always have these ripple effects. You can't just look at one thing in isolation.
All right, so we've looked at all this data. Now, what's the bottom line? Did Trump really build a new economy, or was he just riding the wave that Obama started?
It's tough to say for sure, but it seems like a lot of what we saw under Trump was a continuation of trends that were already happening.
So look at those long-term patterns we were talking about?
Exactly. That doesn't mean Trump had no impact at all, but it's more nuanced than saying he single-handedly created a booming economy.
Right. It's never that simple.
Nope.
It really makes you think, though, if these trends can last through different presidencies, how much power does any one president actually have?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is. And it's something for all of us to think about, especially when we hear politicians making promises about the economy.
Definitely. Because the data often tells a different story.
And sometimes those long-term trends, those are the things that really matter.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And remember, keep digging into the data yourself. You never know what you might find.